Welcome to Wait, What Do You Do Again? I'm your host, Meghan DeFord, and I am so excited to have our guest today, Kristin Gallatin, on. Her story is super cool. I was recently on her podcast, The Savvy Leader, and when we started talking beforehand, I was like, oh my gosh, you have to be on my podcast. Like, our listeners need to hear from you. So who is Kristin? Kristin is a life coach who aligns lives and businesses with individuals' values, which I cannot wait to talk about. That is like right up my alley and also really relates to your personal story that we're going to talk about today, which is you and your husband made a pretty awesome and bold decision to RV around the country and volunteer at national parks. And I was just so obsessed with your story because it touches on things that we really don't talk about enough. And it's when you decide to make those big decisions, how do you decide to make those big decisions? How do you define success for yourself? And it's like purpose over autopilot and the idea of someday making that now. So I am like so excited about this, Kristin. I'm so excited that you're here. And I think a really great way to kick us off is to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing, and we'll just go from there.
I am super jazzed to be joining you today on your podcast. I think it's phenomenal, and I love the stories that you share, and I'm just excited to be here and chat with you some more. So thanks for having me, Meg.
So I guess let's start before you made this decision to go on the road with your husband and do your coaching, which is really important. And I think, again, you're really living what you help people with. What were you doing before that? And then how did you get to the point of making this decision? What was that catalyst?
So there's always a story, and oftentimes in our heads, I think we build it up to be a lot more than it actually needs to be. To sum up a lengthy history, I spent about 20 years as the ambitious corporate leader who became self-employed. 2015, I jumped into self-employment because the company I was working with, though they had been so good to me for so many years, had taken some pivots in their business model and the things that they valued, and they were quite misaligned with my own. And I was in my mid 40s. My husband and I decided we would take a chance on ourselves. And we jumped out into being self-employed. Both feet first. We just dove right in. And I can tell you what I learned from that time was it takes a full calendar year for a person to adjust to their new surroundings when you make a big shift like that. Going from having a really great weekly paycheck to counting on yourself, 100% commissions. And though it was everything I knew I could do because I wasn't afraid of hard work, it was still figuring out who I was going to be and who I needed to be for the people that I wanted to serve. So from there, we had a few different endeavors, I'll say. Primarily for me, I was in real estate. I worked 10 years, 11 years in real estate. The last 4 have been as an independent broker. If you're familiar with real estate at all, there is a significant amount of hustle. So again, hard work. I had great people supporting me and cheering me on all along the way. Interestingly enough, I started to see patterns within myself. This was too when I looked back on when I resigned from my corporate gig. I was so close to the summit of success in a few different opportunities that I would see myself step to the side. Instead of stepping over that summit and embracing what most would say is the easy slide down, I would step to the side and learning about myself, whether it was the deserving of success. I'm not quite sure. I'm still working through some of that. Or if it was the fear of success, not knowing if I could handle success, it was right there. I could reach out and I could touch it, but yet I stepped to the side and I looked for different reasons to do that, whether it didn't align with my values, whether it was to support someone else. But from there in 2022, after my husband and I had been out doing our own thing in a few different ways, some really great successes, some challenges. Self-employment is a challenge. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It is a challenge. But in 2022, he was in a very tragic motorcycle crash. He was struck on the highway. And from there, our life completely changed. First, though, I needed to pick up the reins and all the things that we were doing and run all of them myself, in addition to being a full-time caregiver. And caregiving, I'm good at things like when I have a list in front of me of things, I'm a very goal-oriented person, so I'm good at stuff like that, but I'm not the most caring person. So I had to learn some patience and some deeper sympathy, I should say. I'm pretty good at empathy, but sympathy was something I needed to allow to surface in my life during that time. I'm still a full-time caregiver, though the needs are a lot less significant than they were. But therein lies that alignment piece, once again, the values. And as we struggle to determine our best next step, it was hard. The things that were available to us, the things that we knew we needed to do, it was a tough decision to make, but hitting the road full time was our best option. Downsizing our property and making things more livable for ourselves and more conducive to our lifestyle was top of mind. And yet also recognizing that here we are now in our 50s, not quite yet ready to retire, and still wanting to live life and not allow the limitations that can come with that type of change in your world to keep us from doing the things that we loved. We always loved road tripping. We took our motorcycles out and we throw tents on the back and we camped in the mountains. It was incredible. And those are memories I'll never let go of. And though I wasn't quite ready to sell my bike, I'm happy to be where I'm at now for sure. And I've learned so much.
Was there a specific moment after the accident, after you were looking at all of your options, was there a specific moment when you're like, yeah, we can do this, like we can make this work? Or was it just more of a process
Mhm.
of exploring all of your options and saying like, hey, why not?
I think it was gradual,
Mhm.
though my MO has always been to never shy away from hard work. I am the I got it girl, the I'll do it all girl. And I proved that during about a 6 or 9 month time frame right after the accident when I was running his contracting business, my real estate business, and another nonprofit that I have, plus supporting an additional nonprofit, taking care of the house all of myself and full-time caregiving, where it still required things like wound care and medical appointments 4 times a week. It was an incredible amount to juggle. And I'll be honest and let you know that my body did not appreciate all that was happening. And I developed a heart condition that I've now had some surgery on that's mostly corrective. So I think I'm good now. But my body was telling me that it was time to make a change. And seeing all that was around us, all that we still needed to do, we still have a drive. Like I said, we're still just in our 50s. We have so much more to give. And we're not ready to just lay back and, do life that way. We wanted to see and do and engage and still be a really, strong part of our communities and society. So hitting the
Yeah.
road comes at a cost. It comes at a cost in relationships and other things that we can talk about. But so it was recognizing my health wasn't going to last if I didn't make some changes and seeing some limited options that weren't really appealing to us. This was our best one. And like I said, we're glad we did it. We're so glad to be out here doing
That's
this.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And with that, when you decide, you make that decision and it's exciting and there's all this opportunity, what were the fears that you had? What were maybe some of the doubts that you had? And then how did you overcome those?
Well, real estate was my primary gig, and that was most of my income. So knowing that you can't really do real estate not living in the state that you're in, it's a pretty hands-on sport. I knew that I was going to take a huge pay hit. So in order to make this work, we would need to sell it all, and we did, We actually sold our home and just about all of our belongings, gave away as much as we could. And doing that allowed us to live mostly debt free. So taking some of that financial burden off of me was huge. Granted, we live with a little bit of limited means at this point while we're in a rebuilding stage, I'd call it. That was probably the bigger fear was, okay, how are we going to make this work financially? And then secondly, he still has a lot of care needs. So doctor appointments, medications. And throughout that process, life took another little bit of a curve and he developed cancer. So there's some additional medical requirements that are needed. And so we needed to figure out how to navigate all of that. And it has been a challenge. Our healthcare system in America is not very flexible. So there was that. And I've learned an incredible amount of the pieces and parts of our healthcare in America that are broken, but that's a conversation for another day.
And it's so frustrating, right? Because when you need it, then you have to navigate it, and you're trying to figure all of that out. But yeah, that's a whole other thing. How is your husband doing now? How's his health?
It's pretty good. I mean, he's cancer free and he's mobile. He's a little limited in his mobility, and he's got to be really cognizant of the amount of activity he has in a day. His body broken up. He's got a lot of metal inside of him holding him together and a few other electronics. But we get by. And I think that was what was important to us was we were so ready for a change of scenery to away from the doctors, away from all of that stress and all the things that come along with that kind of catastrophic life change. So we were ready to hit the road and feel some freedom. The freedom that comes along with this type of lifestyle it can take your breath away. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And so I want to explore this, and then I do want to get to what you're doing now with coaching, because I think it's just beautiful. And before we get into like the RV lifestyle and the national parks and all of that amazingness, how did you define success prior to this time in your life? How would you define success prior to this? And then we can talk a little bit about how you're defining it now.
Yeah. Prior to this, I think like most people, it was going to be the amount of money in my bank account. I think financially is where so many of our attention lies, is that cash. The cash in the account, what's your income, what's your paycheck, what's your commission, how much money are you raking in? I think success for me subconsciously would have been the money. Interestingly enough, though, because I think I had a really broken relationship with success, when the money started to come, I gave it all away. I gave it all away, whether it was in the form of making donations, giving amazing gifts, having incredible events at my home, picking up the tab at dinner, whatever it was. When I had the money, I was giving it away. And part of that may have been my own self-worth. But like I said, too, just that kind of not great relationship with money and success and all of that. And still working through it, today.
Do you feel like that was part of your upbringing or societal, and you don't have to answer that if you don't want to?
No, yeah, I don't mind answering that at all. I think it's a little bit of both. I think we as women are expected to do all, be all, and have all, and look amazing while we're doing it. I think that women put more on themselves, even on top of what society has determined they should be. I didn't come from much. Our family didn't have much. So I don't think I ever really learned how to deal with money properly and what kind of relationship, that there even was such a thing as having a relationship with money. I think you had to have money in order to have a relationship with it, and we just didn't.
It's interesting, very similar in terms of grew up without much money, if any. When I did start making money and being in a position where you have money left over, right, outside of all your bills, savings, investments, and all that kind of stuff, it's wonderful to be generous. It is wonderful to be generous, but I do think there comes a point where that generosity turns into self-abandonment, and we don't talk about that enough. And we don't talk about our relationship with money. Women in general, I don't think, talk enough about money. And it was interesting, the world that I lived in, guys talk about money all the time. all the time.
Yeah.
And it's very empowering when you talk about it, but it can be uncomfortable, especially for women, when that's not polite. It's not something you should, I'm using air quotes, brag about. So that
Yeah.
relationship with money personally and as well as to society is hugely important. That's
Mhm.
really interesting. And then, I think that oftentimes we equate stability with safety, which is something you certainly had, right? Like you
Yeah.
had the job promotions, you had the money, you had the relationship, you were out on your bikes, camping, all that kind of stuff. Can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about how you would define stability now and what that looks like for you?
Stability today allows me the freedom of choice. I have the freedom of flexibility and the freedom of choice. And stability also is in the form of that relationship with yourself, with your partner, your family. I would say a little insider tip there, if you're thinking of hitting the road and living in 400 square feet with someone, you better plan on working through some things.
Kristen, you set me up for this because my next question was like, what is it like living in such a small space with your partner all the time? Like, what is that like? And what is
Yeah.
rising both good and maybe?
Preferred. What are the realities of living on the road? Oh, I can give you that easy. One is you need to be open and you're not hiding anything from the other person. Everything is on the table. At the end of the day, you have each other. So if there is, this isn't a time to allow things to fester.
Mm.
It's not a time to bottle up feelings or emotions. It is a time to get really, really good at articulating what your perceptions are in a way that can be received as let's talk about it versus creating defenses, creating time and space for yourself as individuals. We are fortunate enough that we were able to purchase an RV that's got quite a large living space, and my office is in a separate section, so I can literally close a door and we have separate spaces. Other than that, I take a lot of walks, bike rides, take the dog for walks. I'll go, like, there have been times where I've hopped in the car, I should say truck, and head into town to take video or photos for myself just to have an hour or two exploring some things, recognizing that the person I'm here with doesn't really have the ability to spend hours wandering around or taking long walks. So I still have those opportunities and I take advantage of those. And just being really giving yourself lots of grace
Mhm.
throughout the process. We've been out here about a year and a half and we've gotten really, really good at just being content with what we have. And we don't need much. Grateful for the food that we have, the beautiful surroundings we get to spend our time in. Even if money is tight, it's okay because we're already surrounded by all of the things that we love. I will say though, and in just kind of very practical terms, be prepared for really crappy water.
Mm.
People in RVs get water softeners. We didn't opt for that because I felt like it was just going to be one more thing to break and to have to repair later. And then, the space is tight and you find yourself cleaning it very often because it's smaller.
Yeah.
But, just being cognizant of your surroundings, and of course you're kind and pleasant, but some of the things that I've overcome while being on the road are I never used to be someone who I would always avoid conversations with people for whatever reason. Lots of baggage there, right, from childhood, whatever. I am now kind of in a position where I don't get to do that. If we have a question, if we have a need, I got to go find somebody. I used to make him do it. Now I have to go do it. The plumber, if somebody comes to fix something, I got to go talk to him. So getting over some of those insecurities is another thing. And then being patient, finding patience for people, for places, for unexpecteds.
I think I love a road trip, but what I love about a road trip are all the surprises, but then there's also maybe not so great surprises, like a flat tire or whatever. Like, how do you decide where you're going to go next? Like, do you have
Mm.
it planned out for a while, or are you just, let's go here next, or let's go there? Like, how are you making those decisions together?
Initially, we had taken some advice from some friends, and we visited friends on our first few months out a year and a half ago. From there, we got connected with a publishing company,
Hmm.
and we were contracted to sell ads for some advertisements for different campgrounds. So in turn for doing that sales piece, my husband's actually a really great salesperson. So it was an easy thing for us to step into and kind of earn a little bit of extra cash. And then we would also get free campground stays. So that planning out that kind of work schedule was what determined a good 6 or 7 months of our time frame. But I'd always wanted to, I love volunteering. It's just so near and dear to my heart that getting engaged with the National Park Service and our government, public lands, and all of those different departments within the government, you can volunteer and then you are able to stay at a campsite for free. So again, we're building a business, money's a little bit tight, so we're saving where we can. And right now we haven't paid like outright paid for a campground fee in over a year.
Amazing. And what does the volunteer work look like when you're doing that?
It's a ton of fun. A lot of times we hop in, well, we're here right now in central Pennsylvania in an area of the Appalachians that's got this mammoth campground. It's just beautiful here, though the mountains kind of interfere with Wi-Fi, but the work that we've been doing is either campground patrol, where we drive around in our little UTV around the park and pick up trash or empty garbage cans or talk to people, help them answer questions. We had someone who needed help with their power station at their site, or we help other volunteers on bigger projects, like they were creating these fish habitats they were putting in the lake. And otherwise, they've got a huge complex. So we'll go around and drive around their vehicles and look at different gates or campgrounds or sites. Or it's a lot of support. It's a myriad of things. The great part about working with these environments is they are really grateful for the volunteer help. Even though they're allowing us to stay in this amazing location at no cost, they still view us as volunteers and want to make this a pleasant stay for us. So they don't have us do anything that's particularly non-preferred, like you said.
Yeah.
So we're limited. Probably the less preferred item is picking up trash or grabbing bags of trash from garbage cans. That's probably the one thing that somebody might shy away from. This weekend, we'll be on campground patrol, where we'll just be driving around, answering questions, helping people with things that they need throughout the campsites.
Do you have, if you're allowed to say, do you have a favorite park that you've been to?
They're all so great. And I get to pick. So far, we've been here in central Pennsylvania. They want you to stay for at least 2 months. And then the amount of time that you volunteer is 30 hours as a couple or 20 hours as an individual. So just to give you an idea of how much time you're actually helping out, it's only amounts to about 3 days a week.
That's great.
It's so doable.
Maybe I should ask it this way. Is there a part or an experience that has changed you the most so far or impacted you the most?
No, not yet. I think I'm someone who appreciates things for just exactly what they have to offer. So we're in the mountains right now. In February, we were in a national wildlife refuge in North Florida. That was just incredible, right off the coast. We're headed to stay in a lakes region of Minnesota in a couple of months. And then from there, we'll be heading out west, looking at some different places near Sedona, Arizona. We loved being in New Mexico, and that desert was just so fulfilling and enriching to see the sky just open up like that at night, and the sunsets are just amazing, really amazing. I think all in all, the whole experience has been more peace and less pulls.
Interesting. Yeah. And this country is gorgeous. I've talked about this with previous podcasts. Like, it's travel in general is so enriching, and getting out of the country is wonderful, but the United States is so diverse. And I mean, just think about everything that you just listed right there. So I love that you're open to all of it and seeing the beauty and wonder of all of it. And it's interesting you said the desert. I grew up in the mid-Atlantic. I'm now in South Florida. And the desert to me, there is just something about it. You know, it's so alive for an area. When you hear the word desert, you don't think of life. And it's incredible. It really
is. And it's just so, I mean, when at night, it's quiet. It is quiet. Like right now, we're in some mountains, and I don't know that I've ever been surrounded by so many bird sounds with birds that I cannot see. I mean, it's all day 24/7, this amazing bird chirping all around us. It's beautiful. So it's so different. And all just inspiring. It's an
Yeah.
incredible opportunity.
That's a different podcast. But anyway, that's so cool.
For
And,
sure.
I think the other thing that's so interesting about it as well is like how you're making it work for yourself. And I love that, and how you have talked about this the entire conversation of all these different pivots, right? Like
Mm.
that you didn't necessarily take the promotions or the next step in corporate life because it just didn't quite work. And then if the organization you worked for pivoted, it was time to work for yourself. And then life
Mhm.
pivoted and you've decided to go on this journey. Let's talk a
Mhm.
little bit about what you're doing now with coaching and taking all of your experience, all of your leadership experience, your nonprofit work, your life experience, and putting that together. Can you talk a little bit about what type of coaching you do and how you came to that? And before you answer that, last time we spoke, and even at the top of this episode, we both were like, "Buck, we hate the word coaching," right? Like, but there isn't really a
Yes,
better.
yes.
So, why don't, when you're talking about all of this, if you can kind of talk a little bit about your aversion to that word, we can talk about that a little bit later. But I want you to own that word. You are a life coach. You're a wonderful life coach. And tell us a little bit about the type of coaching that you're doing and how you came to it.
Okay. Coaching, I don't know where this all stems from. The thing about me that I'm constantly negotiating with myself on and battling in my head about is I love change. So that is one thing your listeners should understand about me. Change is my thing. I love change. I love the change of the seasons, the change of the scenery. I embrace change like no other. So making these big pivots and these big changes in my life were easier for me because I don't have an aversion to change. I've always counted on myself to get through it and my own abilities to kind of get through it. And of course, of God too. I've trusted in God to lead me, and He carried me through the toughest parts of my life. I'll attest to that any day of the week. Your question about the coaching piece of it, I think my aversion to that word is just that it's kind of overused. It's kind of overused these days. And it seems like millions and billions of coaches in all different facets. And I think they're needed. I think that they're the work that these people are doing is incredible. I just, for some reason, the word coach brings about a bit of a stigma. And
Mhm.
it might have something to do with AI.
Mhm.
AI has allowed a lot of people to step into coaching a lot easier with lesser credentials and to create an online persona that's really not transparent or honest. And I think that's part of it. But for myself, I think it's just because it's so overused and I'm always looking to be different.
Yeah.
But I had to recognize that coach is the word that everybody recognizes, and to stop trying to use other words or just try to name it something else, I think would be taking away from the work that I do and it would be confusing to people. So I call myself a true north coach.
Mhm.
And that's because I live at the intersection of leadership, identity, business, and life. I want to help people create the lives to build upon. I want to help them recognize their values and also see the patterns and strengths that have been there their whole life. Because oftentimes we find ourselves getting caught up in this busyness. And like I like to call it the pulls. The pulls of life are pulling you away from the who that you are and you have always been at your core. The child inside, the one that didn't have society's expectations placed upon them, this person within you that's still in there and is still trying to come out. And that's where your values lie and all of those things. So I want to help people rediscover their values, rediscover what really matters to them, and then build their life around that instead of building their calendars and their schedules around what everybody else wants out of them. Start building their life around what matters most to them.
And there's so much there to talk about, and we are very aligned in that way, even down to the word coach, which I think there's just so much bullshit in this industry. That's why I'm not I'm kind of averse to it. I'm like, well, what are your credentials, and what is your expertise? When I see a 23-year-old
Mm.
trauma informed
Yeah.
relationship coach, and I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. But the thing that really took me not aback, but I don't hear enough, I don't think, about tapping into your values, which is a foundation of
Mm.
the work that I do as well. So, talk a little bit about how you got to values as your foundation, and if that was always
Mm.
part of your experience throughout all your different careers and experiences that you bring into this, or if that's something that you figured out maybe closer along the way to what you're doing now.
I definitely kind of got tapped into it a little bit more this last year and a half. Up until now, I was the epitome of every ambitious woman out there trying to be all and do all and have all and look amazing while doing it. And I was thanked for all of that effort with health problems
Yeah.
and non-fulfillment and stress and all of the things that we're trying to keep away from the public seeing about us, because that's what truly happens when you try to be that person, is how empty you are inside. A lot of it, I think, stems from just re-evaluating my own self-worth, re-evaluating my idea of success. What is success really to me in my heart and in my soul? It's really not money. It has more to do with freedom and
Mhm.
freedom of choice and having the ability to be in the places that I want to be in. Now, in doing so, I made a lot of sacrifices too. I've got family that I miss, that miss me. And you might have already caught on to the fact that I was doing a lot for a lot of people that I am no longer able to do now. So being out here and being isolated in this way, I had to get really intentional about reaching out and keeping in connection with the people that mattered most. I figured out who I was calling and who I was sending letters and cards to, or, who I was encouraging through text messages and who I was inviting on my own podcast, because these are the people that I wanted to be around. These are the people who helped keep me centered on my own right path. So, yeah, I'd say that having to really evaluate my own values it's harder than it sounds. I mean, because some of them are inherent. Like,
Mhm.
I'm a mother, so there's some automatic values that come with that. I'm a business owner, there's some values there. I'm a wife, I'm a caregiver. There's some automatic values that come along with these different types of, I will call them labels, that are placed upon us during different seasons of our life. And having those values, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we talked about this when we chatted before. You were in philanthropy prior to, so there's some pretty damn good value systems
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. But were they really the ones that were speaking to you and your core and what really mattered to you? They might have been close, but were they really the ones? And for myself, it wasn't really that way. I mean, there were things I was doing that was true to me and who I was, which was being generous, getting involved in the community, being supportive. I really wanted to help other people feel happiness. It was really important to me to provide experiences and joy for others. That just lit me up. I loved
Mhm.
buying gifts for people
Yeah.
and being, especially unexpectedly. So values to me were more like how it helped me to feel. And I'll give you a story quick. When I was in North Florida, I took this long hike. Well, I was volunteering, and there was this long hike that was like 6 miles long. And the name of the trail is called Cathedral of the Palms.
Mhm.
When you go to this area of North Florida, it's the first hiking trail that comes up. It's super popular. The
Yeah.
pictures are amazing. And the problem was the refuge that I was volunteering at had a terrible system in place for how to actually walk this trail. And so I walked it, and I walked it more than once. But the first time I walked it, I didn't know where I was going, and it wasn't well marked. And I was using my All Trails app, and I went way off path. And I'm like, oh, I just walked an extra mile on an already really long hike and came back, found my way, found one pit stop along the way that was a beautiful spring in the middle of nowhere. And at that point, I felt like, I mean, it was so beautiful and so amazing. I kind of felt like, well, maybe I'll just go back now. I don't know where I'm going. Is this even going to lead me? Is there even a cathedral of palms? Like, what does that even? I was doubting things. And then, but I didn't, because I'm the I got it girl. I kept going, damn it. And I kept moving on. And it wasn't long after that that I came upon the Cathedral of Palms, and it was amazing. It was amazing. You were in this canopy of palm trees, and it was so amazing. I created a video on it. I did it like an Instagram reel on the whole thing because it was so obvious that here I was following what I thought was the path, and it wasn't. I had to turn around. I had to recalibrate. I had to realign myself. And then I got partway and I thought I had this win, and oh, I'm going to give up now. And then I didn't. That right there was what really helped me see how I want to help other people.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And I love that's such a wonderful metaphor because so often we only see the end product, but what we don't
Mm,
see is all the failures and the turnarounds and the questioning that got people to that end product, right? Like the joke is an overnight success is 10 years in the making.
yeah.
And, and I love that. And all of that helps you also appreciate the end result more too. So like you went through all of those, that turbulence, and you
Hmm.
can appreciate it when you get there.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, values work, I think, is incredibly important. We often mistake our identity with our titles or our bank accounts or,
Yeah.
all the external things, when really it's your values that are helping to shape your identity. I think the other point that you made about as women, and you and I are both ambitious women, and we like
Hmm.
doing things. We like being busy. We like changing. We like growing.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone the other day. I was like, I like winning. I'm unabashed about liking winning. I don't like losing. It's not fun. Like it's not. And
Yeah.
and you don't hear too many women talking about that, right? And
Right.
societally, I think as women, we are very much taught exactly what you're saying. Be everything to
Yeah.
everybody, look good doing it,
Hmm.
externalizing. And
Hmm.
taking that moment to stop and get in touch with your values, I also think, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this, I also think is a safe way to do it. Because so many
Yeah.
times if we stop and think about it, it's like, oh, we're being selfish. Oh, we're not giving enough. I'm a mom
Yes.
too. And I mean, my God, I love being a mom. I love being a mother.
Hmm.
It's nonstop. And for a very long time in your life, you have to give everything you can because you're keeping a little human alive, especially when they're
Yeah.
crazy and all they do is like try and kill themselves when they're toddlers. You're like, what are you doing? So you get into
Yeah.
that mode, you're in that mode
Yeah.
societally, possibly your family structures reinforce that.
Mm.
I'm curious your thoughts on like I think it's a very important place. I think it's a foundational place, but I think it's a safe place, especially as women, to
Mhm.
start coming back to ourselves.
I think it is, and I think it's so, so important. You're right, though. There are seasons of our life when we made a commitment and that required a sacrifice of
Mhm.
ourselves, and child rearing is one of them. And
Yep.
sometimes you might make a commitment to a job change, like I did when I went and I was self-employed. I was hustling. And, because I needed to earn an income because that was going to be it. I didn't have
Yeah.
any other money coming in. So it was, there's times and seasons in our life when we need to make those kind of sacrifices, and there's nothing wrong with that. So people shouldn't beat
Yep.
themselves up about the whole thing because it doesn't mean you're changing as a person. It just means you're managing your life in the best way that you know how. But yes, once you get to a place, I shouldn't even say it like that because I don't want people to think like they got to wait because you
No.
shouldn't wait. Don't wait till you're comfortable because that day will never come. But being in tune to yourself and what your gut and your heart is telling you. When I went on that path and I was on that hiking trail, I felt it in my soul that I was first off track. And then I felt it in my soul when I found the place I needed to be
Mhm.
and really feeling, allowing yourself to feel that. And that I think is the key to working through the values and staying in tune to when it doesn't feel right. You can work for so long. For myself, I worked so long that my body was like, no, sorry, sister, it's time for you to slow the F down
Yeah.
because this is enough. I
Yeah.
can't take it. And I don't want anybody else to get to that point. What I want is for people to listen to their bodies and then, yes, it's okay. And the best way to do that is to just talk about it. So if there's someone that you feel like you refocusing on yourself and your own values, if there's someone you feel like might be sensitive to that change, just talk to them about it and work through it with them. If they love you, if they care about you, if they want what's best for you, they're going to have the conversation with you and they're going to understand. And it doesn't mean that you get to make this change overnight. It's a process. It's a whole thing. And it might take you a very long time to be able to get yourself back to your values and the things that you love and love about life.
And when you're working with clients, like How are you moving them through that process?
Everybody's a little bit different. And I feel like I want to say throughout all of my life, I have been that person who is constantly coaching people through difficult situations. So I have a bit of an intuitiveness within me that sees the things and sees
Mhm.
the patterns and have learned how to gently or share what I'm noticing by
Sure.
way of their patterns, their behaviors. And a lot of that too is because of lived experience. But it goes through there is a huge process, and it's a conversation centered around how they're spending their time. I remember hearing from my old pastor who said, if you want to know where your priorities are, take a look at your bank account. See where you're spending your money, and that will tell you where your priorities are. And so, having those kind of honest conversations, of course, realizing that it needs to be a safe space and a non judgmental space because we're all just figuring it out. But it is a process of kind of not redefining who you are, but rediscovering the self that you've forgotten. But it goes through a series of meetings, 3 or 4, and then follow up a little ways down. But typically, when I get to know somebody, I continue to reach out, I continue to encourage.
Mhm.
And in terms of will it stick, the commitment is only going to happen when the person is really ready.
Mm.
Being ready for this change usually comes after a huge pivot, just like you experienced and I experienced in our life. We were ready for the change and recognizing that there are seasons that are going to be tougher and seasons that are going to be more willing to receive this type of change in our life is the best time to do that. And only you will know when you're ready, but you will know. You'll know
Yeah.
when you're ready to find yourself again and rediscover your values and put those at the forefront of your mind instead of on the back burner.
Yeah. I think the ironic thing about feeling ready is oftentimes when you don't feel ready is the indication
Mhm.
you are ready, right? And we're not talking about
Yeah.
like brain surgery. We're not talking about repairing a
Yeah.
transmission. Like those are really tactical
Yeah.
skills. But so many times when you're feeling that friction and we're waiting for
Hmm.
the time to be right, we're waiting to be ready,
Yeah.
that is your indicator to take the first step.
Mhm.
And it can be so scary, right? A lot of trust that you have to put in yourself at a time when you're vulnerable. And the thing that I hope listeners in all of this conversation, one of the takeaways I hope that they have is you're not starting over. You're starting from experience,
Mhm.
right? This next
Yeah.
iteration of yourself is not blowing up everything that you know, it's just
Mhm.
applying it. And I have to remind myself of this, like you have survived everything up until this point and
Yes.
thrived up until this point. You have the answers. Stop doubting yourself. I love how you haven't sugarcoated anything. There may be sacrifices, things may be
Mhm.
hard, but I also think that's part of what makes life worth living, right? It's the
Mhm.
fullness of the experience. I say that as someone who I love throwing money at things to make it easier. I love things being smooth. We all do, but the way that we grow and the way that we experience life has to be all of it, right? It makes the
Yeah.
rainbow of the experience. I'm curious about all of this. Your life is really interesting. You have taken the reins of your life and figured things out for yourself and just seem to be in such a good place. Do you feel like you have become more courageous through this experience and this process?
Courage has never really been the issue for me. I
Mhm.
think the bigger issue for me is allowing myself to step into the light. It's still a work in progress.
Mhm.
And I think it is important to know that and to give yourself grace for that. I'm more courageous in the sense that I got to go ask questions to people that I never used to do.
Yeah.
I was the person at the store that would be like, I'm fine. I don't need your help. Even though I'm 7 miles away from the item that I need and I have no idea even where to find it or what to do. Fine. I don't need your help. I am asking for help more.
Good.
So, as far as courageous goes, being out on the road has caused me to need to step into that and get over my damn self about some of the things, some of the silly little fears, little anxieties, little things that would stop me, such as that. But stepping into the light of your life is scary and also confusing because you're not sure what you're going to see there. You're not sure what's going to show up once you get in there. You're not sure if you want other people to see what's there too. And are they the right people too? That's the other thing is when we talk about the sacrifice, there very well may be some people in your world that you might need to spend a little less time with. There might be some things and activities that you're so used to doing and that you thought you loved that you may need to do less of too in order to stay true to who you are and your values and to move forward to the person that you lost.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think it also applies to yourself that you have to let certain parts of yourself go, even parts of yourself that you enjoyed,
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah.
get you to this next step. And
Right.
there's a grief in that, right? And with a guest a few episodes ago, Pearl Cece, and she's a somatic coach, and we were talking about grief, and we were talking about, and it relates to our conversation about some of the,
Mm-hmm.
she called them low vibrational
Oh,
emotions, right? Because I was like, I don't want to call them negative. Like being sad isn't negative,
yeah.
grief isn't negative, but so she calls them low
Yeah.
vibrational, which I like. But we were
Yeah.
talking about the more that you can embrace it and move through it versus avoid it, that's
Yeah.
where the good stuff is. That's where
Mm.
all the beautiful things is. That's rediscovering yourself. That's having that freedom of choice. That's having courage. That's all of those awesome things. If again, I think this can be a scary process or an overwhelming process for
Mm-hmm.
folks.
Yeah.
And just understanding or knowing, or at least take our word for it, like the faster you go embrace going through it, the easier
Mm-hmm.
it is.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's certainly worth it. I mean, your life right now,
Yeah.
I can't imagine is quote unquote easy, but it sounds amazing. It sounds so great. And you sound so
Yeah.
free and so in control of
Yeah.
what you get to do or not
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah, I can tell you. I was just thinking about this the other day when I was out for a walk. I was thinking about before now, prior to 2022,
Yeah.
we would do amazing things too, right? Like we would take our kids on amazing road trips and we would go on amazing motorcycle rides. And I was reminded of something I used to tell myself frequently as a motorcycle rider, as a female.
Mhm.
I would challenge, I had a love and then a not love. I had a mixed relationship with my motorcycle. I love the freedom that it allowed me. I love the way I felt when I was on it. I love that I felt kind of like badass because I was a woman and I was riding my own damn motorcycle and I was doing my thing and I was good at it. And I felt confident and comfortable. But inevitably, during almost every road trip we went on, there would be some type of challenge. So every time I got on my bike, I would be filled with the anxiety of what's the challenge going to be this time? Is it going to be rough terrain? Is it going to be inclement weather? Is it going to be road traffic? Whatever the case may be, I knew that you don't have a choice while you're on your bike because if you don't do it, you'll die. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing surrounding you to protect you. There's no glass and steel
Yeah.
frame around you to save you from what's happening, on the outside. It's you and it's your motorcycle, and you're going to go flying and it isn't going to go well. So I would have to move through these challenging things, and I loved it. I loved the challenge of it. At the same time, we would go on these amazing bike rides with groups, and it would be so ironic that oftentimes I'm towards the front of the pack, usually because I'm impatient, and I would be either the second or the third person behind the leader of the group. And I would be so focused on maintaining that bike formation. So we would get done with some amazing drive through this beautiful scenery, and we'd pull over and everybody would be high-fiving each other about how great it was and how beautiful it was. And I'd be like, what? Where? I don't remember seeing anything but the tailpipe on the guy in front of me the
Right.
entire time.
Right.
So now that I've been out here long enough, a full year, I've been out here, I'm actually seeing the beauty again.
Mm.
I'm seeing the beauty like I've never seen it. Never in all the different campsites we've been to prior to this, or with all the amazing mountain views that we saw and the oceans that we went to with our families, because the pulls kept pulling me away from seeing what was right there in front of me. And now I do. And so those are the parts that I'm just so grateful for this opportunity. And at the same time, I have lots of feelings of isolation too.
Mm.
I miss my kids. I miss my grandkids. We go to great lengths to drive to see them and to stay engaged in their lives. And it breaks my heart when we're not there and something happens or we miss a major milestone. It does hurt. I am isolated. It's been good for me to do
Mhm.
this and work through some of the things that I'd been avoiding for so long, but it did come at a cost.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you want to make sure listeners hear or know?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. I mean, I'm in the building process. I'm excited to work with people and learn about them and learn about their
Yeah.
stories and help them get to a place where their values come first and where they get to schedule their life around what matters most to them.
I love that. And we will, at the end of this, in the show notes, we have where you can reach out to Kristin and she will tell us at the end how you can find her. The 3 questions I asked everyone, I'm actually going to make this 4 questions and I'm going to throw you a
Okay.
curveball really fast, but I think it's easy. Are you more of a
Okay.
sunrise person or a campfire person?
Ooh, both.
Yeah.
I love when we were in the desert, we have a deck on the back of our RV and it was faced towards the sunrise. So getting up and doing yoga here in this space with the sun coming up was amazing. I love campfires and hot chocolate or
Yeah.
hot tea or wine. I mean,
Yeah.
all those things. So I love them. I love them both.
Love it. I love that. And we talked about this a little bit, but in your volunteer work, in your coaching work,
Yeah.
however, what do you love most about what you're doing and who you're working with?
I love seeing the light bulb moments when it connects, when the words and the things that I'm having them work through come together in such a way that they're like, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
And they can feel it in their soul, they can feel it in their heart, and their eyes just like light up. And because you know that that moment, their life just changed
Yeah.
for the better. And even in a small way, those things, little by little, those things add up to big things and they're moving in a better direction than they were before.
Yeah. And what do you wish your younger self knew, or what advice would you give to your younger self?
Mm. Step into the light, allow yourself to be seen, and just allow, yeah, that's just it, I guess. Allow yourself to step into the light, embrace the light. Oftentimes we find the light shining on us and we shy away or we back up or we stay to the background. We don't want to call too much attention to ourselves. And I just want people to know that they should step into the light. It's a good place to be. And it's going to help you in your growth, in your life, to allow others to see the person that you truly are instead of the person allowing everybody else to step into the light instead.
And how can people find you?
You can find me at savvylivingnetwork.com. You can also find the podcast on YouTube and all the places, Savvy Leader Podcast. I've also got a Substack called the Savvy Leaders Lounge, where I have different dialogue and conversations about leadership and life and business and all of the things that matter.
Kristin, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and I appreciate you sharing so much of your story, how you got here, all your cool RV info. I mean, I didn't think we were going to talk about hard water today. That is awesome. Who would have
Nope.
thought?
Nope.
And I hope if people are listening and resonated with Kristin's story and what she's doing, reach out to her. She's really just wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing with all of us today.
You bet. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and a joy to be here having this conversation with you, Meg. I'm so grateful. Thank you.